Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring you another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And today's guest is Jim Boswell. He's president and CEO of OnPoint Healthcare Partners. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you having me on today.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about this. This is the hottest thing in healthcare IT. It's my favorite thing that may help burnout for doctors if we get it right. So I can't wait to dive into your products. But for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself and OnPoint Healthcare Partners.
Yeah, well, thank you, John. I'm excited to be here. So as you mentioned, I serve as the president and CEO of OnPoint Healthcare Partners. We are a company that is just acutely focused on helping to drive out waste and efficiency in the practice of medicine, mainly in the area of physicians. We're focused on driving out that waste through reducing burdens, administrative burdens for the physicians and creating time. Some say we're obsessed by it, and I have to say we
good.
probably are obsessed by it, given our backgrounds. Our background is we're all operators. We've been running large medical groups for all our career, and we've been in the trenches with the physicians and the other providers and the care teams around in our various specialties, and we know really what's going to add value and what's not.
That's interesting. I mean, I think every doctor, nurse, every person in healthcare wants that. So that's a good obsession, I think.
Yes, thank you. Yes, absolutely.
So talk to us about the Iris Virtual Clinical Assistant. What is it? How does it work? Tell us about it.
Iris Virtual Clinical Assistant is technology that we've written during the pandemic. So we had the advantage of a worldwide pandemic, and really we structured our technology accordingly. What Iris Virtual Clinical Assistant does is it focuses, the core aspect of it is in note creation, clinical documentation. We all know that the burden that is on our providers, physicians as well as all types of providers, is in the documentation of the clinical encounter. And I had the opportunity to get into this business, and that was where we focused. Mm-hmm. And what Iris Virtual Clinical Assistant, and note, it doesn't say virtual scribing, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is because we go way beyond a clinical note. Okay. Clinical documentation is only one aspect of it. So there's several other aspects that I'll talk about. But what we are a ambient documentation solution that is in the exam room with the physicians, and we deliver that clinical document either immediately, within an hour, within a few hours, or the next morning, depending upon the use case.
Interesting. So how does this solution compare to things like Nuance DAX, DAX Express, Suki, Ambient Healthcare, that are all kind of working in the same clinical documentation space?
Yeah, there's several things that where we differentiate ourselves. One is we are physician driven. So what I mean by that is our technology, we use technology, and technology can do, in our case with AI and everything, we can do about 70% of the job with technology now. And that's a recent phenomenon I can talk about. Uh-huh. The other 30%, we use physicians. Our scribe and our QA team are clinicians and our physicians. So not all, we don't have 100% physicians, but a very large percentage of them are physicians, and 100% of our QA are physicians, and they're both offshore as well as nearshore. And that drives a whole different focus on accuracy. And so we're the only company out there that really has that level of clinical. Most of those that you mentioned are using transcription or non-clinical scribes. That's one aspect that differentiates us. The other thing is we're both in the inpatient setting, outpatient setting, home health setting, acute rehab settings. Wow. So we've built the technology to be able to be utilized in all those different settings, as well as all specialties. We're able to use the technology pretty much all specialties, whereas most of our competitors have started in one area and sort of stayed in that area or branched out, whether they're in surgical or internal medicine or permanent or subspecialists. We're in all of them.
Sure. No, I want to dive into some of that and and how much, how it works to combine the technology with your clinical scribes, your back end, quality team. But
Sure.
talk about what is the workflow for a clinician? How does this work? Is it embedded in the EHR? Is it a separate app? Talk about how does it work for, the workflow for a clinician?
Yeah, great question, John. So we have, it's a mobile app, and it operates on an Android or on iOS, an Apple phone. You just download it from the Play Store or the App Store, and then we also have a web app.
Okay.
And so it sets in Microsoft Azure, in the cloud, but the mobile app is the only thing that the providers get exposure to. The web app is what our team gets exposure to. So the workflow is, we provide the devices for our providers,
Okay.
because we manage those devices through mobile device management.
Uh-huh.
So they download it, they walk into the room, and they are able to just start it, and it sets their quietly. It's not a two-way conversation. And there's no real structure to it required. So the doctor just practices medicine just like they always have,
Right.
and or like they used to. Let's say that. No more texting and treating.
Yeah.
So it sits there quietly, and we at the end of the visit, the physician moves on to the next patient, and that particular encounter is encrypted. By the way, it's encrypted at rest and in transition, goes to the cloud, and it sits there in our web app in a queue for our team around the world to tap into and to finish up the note. Now, AI goes through several sort of manipulations, if you will, of that conversation to arrive at a draft note that our team uses, and we can talk about that, John, a little bit with the advancements that we have. OpenAI, ChatGPT is built into our technology right now. It is in use, and it delivers roughly 70% of the solution. And then our clinicians come back behind the scenes and, what I call, John, perfect the note, because we are absolutely striving for perfection. We have over 500,000, we push about 600,000 notes a year. Wow. And we have, we track every single note has a quality score, and we are tracking right now at 98.6% accuracy. And I mean, real accuracy. I'm not talking about sort of guessing. Every single note has an accuracy rate on it. And you might say, okay, well, how do you determine that? Yeah. We have a proprietary technology that compares. We know exactly what edits are made.
Interesting.
By the physician.
Yeah, lots of questions to think about. What's the turnaround time for a doctor from when they dictate it and, essentially dictate it, it's recorded in the exam room, and then, they actually receive the note in the EHR? Well,
it's within an hour. It can be done within an hour. I will tell you that most outpatient settings, they may ask us to do other things, such as coding.
Okay.
So that's an additional downstream. So when we finish the note, we have our certified coders that go in there and propose a code based upon the documentation. You know how valuable that is, right?
Yeah, no, it was fascinating. When you look at your website, you almost seem like a medical coding company. So it's interesting you have that expertise to layer on top of this.
Yeah, and we also do ACC code.
Yeah.
So, identify suspects and recaptures of HCCs, and then prior auths and referrals, as a technology, are we able to bolt on to Iris the note. So back to the delivery time. So we can do several things with our time that we're given, And so in an outpatient setting, in a world where lag time, doctors actually sign their notes in 5 to 6 days,
Mhm.
for us to deliver that final note the next morning in less than 24 hours is acceptable. But in an inpatient setting, hospitalist, so we're an inpatient setting at hospitalist, you got to deliver the note within an hour or two.
Yeah.
Right. And and in an ER setting, which we are not in yet, but we are set up to do that, you want to deliver that note even faster. So we have the capabilities to do that. And John, something else, we have the capabilities to deliver it in Spanish or English.
Interesting.
So think about that. What if every fourth patient were Spanish,
Mhm.
but patient number 5 is English? How in the world would you do that? How would you? Well, our technology is able to handle that across the globe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a whole topic for another day, I think. But there's
Yeah,
there's a lot of nuance there that could be talked about. But
that's
how
right.
does it flow into the EHR? Like, are you integrated directly with the EHR, or do you have your scribes input it? Do you have interfaces? You talk about how it works, with the EHR, and does it work with all EHR or just specific ones?
Yeah, it works with all EHRs. We're on a bunch right now. Of course, always the question is Epic, right? So
Epic,
we're
Cerner, Meditech on the acute side.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Cerner. We're integrated on the front end with the physician schedule, right? And we're integrated on the back end with the note, so that we get the note in discrete fields inside of the EHR.
Okay.
So and that has to be done, that has to be done quickly and efficiently, of course. And so the note needs to look just like the physician had done it, him or herself. And the accuracy is paramount, because accuracy is what leads to time. If it's not an accurate note, then the doctor has to edit it. If the doctor has to edit it, then you're not getting the time. So what we really say around our offices we're all about creating time for the physician, and that's roughly 4 hours a day, 3 to 4 hours a day, about 6 to 7 patients a day. We're providing, because we assume half of that time, John, the doctor should go to the house. They should spend it home with their family. The truth is, they're not leaving early. The truth is, if you free up 4 hours a day, what's really happening? Doctors are doing their documentation at clinic, and they're doing the documentation at home.
Yeah.
We eliminate 100% of the work at home, and the rest of it, they're more efficient at the clinic, and that's where the 7 or so patients a day come in.
Yeah. No, I mean, we know that well, and whether they decide to have more free time or decide to see more patients, that the beauty is it's up to them. It makes sense.
Right.
It's interesting to talk about the accuracy. You talk about 70% done with the AI, then perfected by it. How many times does the doctor have to correct the note? Do you keep track of those stats, as part of that clinical quality score?
Yeah, we keep track, John. We know keystroke by keystroke what changes are made, and we track that. And we track it by doctor, by client, by state, et cetera. And we also track it, John, by our team member who does the work. And so what I can tell you is the average is 1.8 minutes to edit an IRIS note.
Gotcha.
So think about 1.8 minutes in a world where an average visit is 15 minutes. Right. You save the doctor 13 minutes of time.
Yeah.
And that's almost a visit, right? 15 minutes. So you're saving the doctor a lot of time. Now that the edits come into, it's interesting, most of the edits come into additional information they're adding. We view an edit as an error on our part. Not if they're adding more information, but if they edit out grammar or something that we got wrong, then and most of them are small, right? Nothing real serious. Those are errors in our part, in our view, because we're striving for 100% accuracy.
Right. But it's true. They may want to add something that they didn't say out loud, which obviously you can't document something they just thought rather than said.
Right. We don't view that as an error, but and the doctor doesn't either. Really, they're happy to do that.
Sure.
It's amazing when you look at it and you really focus on this level of accuracy, and we're the only company I know of that's even focusing on this level of edit time and accuracy and the amount of time it gives back to the doctors. That's where you really know you're delivering.
Yeah.
You really are delivering.
Well, I love that you're focused on measuring it too. And interestingly, that you have the data. The other question I was going to ask, and I've been through this before. Sequera had the same solution, of course, acquired by Nuance, and that whole evolution.
Yeah.
But they have the same type of solution. Bring your phone in, record it, and you walk out, and the note's done. Right? I mean, same kind of idea. How do you see it, and what have you learned as far as, does the clinician have to change the way that they're talking in the exam room? Do they need to say more things? Do you see that evolution? I mean, to our last conversation, you could almost present them, hey, here's all the things you had to add. If you just said it, they'd be there, right? Like there's almost an education process you could do. But anyway, how do you see that, like, clinician experience, and whether they change what they're saying? And for example, just, do they need to vocalize more? It seems like the obvious thing, right?
Yeah, John, they do need to vocalize more, but frankly, it comes really easy to them.
Mm-hmm.
And when they do vocalize more, the patients think that they're talking to them and explaining more. I've gotten letters from patients saying, "Thank you for giving my doctor back." They're doing, they're really focusing on me more. And the truth is, the doctor is just look them in the eye more and really vocalizing. So I'm here's an example, John. So I'm hearing a little, focal wheeze in your right lower lobe. I think you're dealing with a little bit of a pneumonia. Well, normally they would just give you a script for pneumonia, right? Well, when they tell us a little focal wheeze in your right lower lobe, that helps us, right? We document that. So the doctor speaks very casually, but we document very professionally. Mm-hmm. Right? And technology can do a little bit of that, or actually it can do quite a bit. When you can feed 600,000 more experiences into the technology, you get a better outcome.
Right.
Right. So we sort of educate or teach it, I guess you will.
Yeah, I mean, there's a recent, I think it was JAMA study, if I remember right, that talked about this, right? That when the doctor vocalizes what they're documenting, the patient has a better experience. So there's literally studies proving that. So it makes sense.
And the doctors find it extremely easy. The patients love it. And, when the doctor looks at I will tell you, it takes about 5 minutes to explain this to a physician or a provider, and they get it. They get it. And then they ask, what's the ROI, right? How can well, the ROI is see 2 more patients a day, and it's paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you approach, purchasing this? Is it a subscription model? Is it per visit? How do you approach, the pricing for it?
We do it on a per visit basis. That's the easiest because you got academic medical centers where they're, teaching and seeing patients. Sure. You got part-time physicians, et cetera. So we do it on a per transaction basis, and that works. Now we need to have a certain minimum, John, and the reason being is because, our physicians that we employ that work on, let's say, one of our user physicians, we use dedicated teams.
Okay.
So you imagine how accurate you can become when you really understand that physician's preferences, right? Yeah. And how accurate you can make AI when you understand those preferences.
Sure. So I mean, we've seen that with scribes, right? Scribes learn the physician's preferences and get quite good at understanding them. So we've certainly seen that phenomenon. That's really interesting to see. Well, where can people go to learn more about OnPoint Healthcare Partners?
Well, they can go to www.ophpartners.com. We have a video on there, and they can, they can get a lot there. They can call us. There's a phone number on there that they can call us, and we can reach out to them. And it's a real quick demo and show them how it works, how we can bring it into their world and impact their physicians quite a bit.
Jim, I love the work you're doing. I love your obsession, and I appreciate you sharing your obsession with us. I think that, we need this obsession. We need to improve, the way, doctors, I describe it as decreasing the documentation burden on providers, right? That's what you're doing.
That's right. And thank you, John. Really it's critical that, patients' information is protected here in the process of all this. That's why when I mentioned that we did this during the pandemic, it's sitting in the cloud. And we do not have to have offshore access to do this always.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite a interesting technology that we've built.
And do you do the same thing? Is that, I mean, that's what I think I've heard from other solutions. The doctor says, hey, by the way, my assistant's going to be, essentially getting the patient consent, in the room, where they say, hey, my assistant's going to be listening. Are you okay with that? Is that how you approach it as well from a patient consent standpoint?
That's correct. And it's rarely an issue at all.
Yeah.
The patients are fine with it. And so are the physicians. In fact, ask a physician to give this up, and that's when the problem comes about. It's very important to their livelihood, and that we're just happy to be able to add that kind of value. I've been around physicians all my career, and we're really happy to be able to bring that kind of value, because you know what, John, they deserve it. They're spending a lot of time healing folks, and we need them practicing on or taking care of patients, not typing.
Yep. You raise an interesting point. They become so addicted to it and used to it. Can they document without it? If a patient says, I don't want it, that's an interesting use case. They'll figure it out though.
Well, I'll tell you, John, one of the biggest questions they asked us is, I told you about Spanish, right? About how, what do I do when a Spanish patient comes in? Well, we solved that problem. Another question is, what do I do if John comes in and he's got, heart palpitations? I got to admit him to the hospital. Well, on ours, you just push stat, and we'll get you the note within minutes.
Interesting. That's a cool feature. Yeah.
If you look at our app, you see operations built all into it. You can tell that operators built it. No criticism against technologists, but we're operators and we're all focused on the end result.
Awesome. Well, Jim, this is a real pleasure. And I love to see this, and I can't wait to see the evolution. And I'm sure everyone's going to be checking out your website to get a demo. So thanks for sharing, and thanks everyone for watching and listening. If you want to find more great healthcare IT content like this, be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcasting application. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.